Admiral Kethavar stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship, watching the holographic display rotate slowly in front of him. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance. Too peaceful. His four eyes studied the data, streams flowing across his command console, and his scaled fingers drummed against the metal surface. "Show me the scout report again," he commanded. Lieutenant Zixtel activated the hologram projector. Images of the third planet from their target star filled the air between them. The world the inhabitants called Earth spun lazily, showing white clouds, blue oceans, and brown and green landmasses. The scout spent 3 rotations observing the planet, Zixtal reported. Population approximately 8 billion sentient beings. Technology level, primitive. No orbital defense stations, no planetary shields, no unified government. Kethvar's second mouth opened in what passed for a smile among his people. 8 billion individuals with no unity. This will be easier than conquering the Vorthan colonies. The data continued to stream across the screens. Earth's inhabitants had split themselves into nearly 200 separate groups. The scouts had detected constant small conflicts between these groups. Some areas showed signs of recent warfare. Others displayed military buildups along invisible borders. They fight each other instead of preparing for external threats, observed Commander Rexto, the ship's tactical officer. Classic signs of a fractured species. Kethvar nodded his large head. The Zephyrian Empire had seen this pattern before. When species remained divided, they never developed the technology needed for real defense. These humans were probably still using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Maybe some primitive nuclear weapons at best. What about their space capability? Kethvar asked. Limited to their immediate orbital space, Zixtal replied. They have sent small craft to their single moon. A few unmanned probes to other planets in their system. No evidence of faster-than-light travel. No deep space installations. The Admiral walked closer to the holographic Earth. His military mind was already calculating the resources needed for this conquest. 50 dreadnoughts should be more than enough. Perhaps they were bringing too much firepower. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Velshaw, "we are receiving updated intelligence from the Outer Rim Scouts. Display it." New images appeared showing human cities, military installations, and industrial centers. The scouts had been thorough. They showed factories producing vehicles, aircraft, and what appeared to be primitive spacecraft. The humans had covered their world with roads, railways, and communication networks. "Impressive infrastructure for such a primitive species," Rexto commented. "They will make excellent workers once we pacify them." Kethvar studied the images more carefully. Something about the human settlements puzzled him. Most conquered species built their cities for defense. They placed important facilities underground or in protected locations. But human cities seemed to sprawl openly across the landscape with no thought of orbital bombardment. They have never faced a space-based threat, he concluded. They build as if attack can only come from their own surface. The tactical display showed human military assets, armies of ground vehicles, aircraft carriers floating on their oceans, and installations that appeared to be missile silos, all designed for fighting other humans. None designed for fighting a technologically superior enemy from space. Their weapons appear to be kinetic-based, Velshaw reported. Metal projectiles accelerated by chemical explosives. Some electromagnetic acceleration detected, but at primitive levels. Kethavar's confidence grew. The Empire's energy shields could deflect kinetic weapons easily. Their plasma cannons could cut through any armor these primitives might have developed. This would be a standard pacification operation. "Update from Fleet Command," announced Velshaw. "Admiral Mortek's Intelligence Division has completed their analysis. Humans are classified as Category 3. Intelligent enough for complex labor, primitive enough for rapid subjugation." The Admiral pulled up the official conquest protocols on his personal display. Category 3 species required a show of overwhelming force followed by demands for surrender. Most submitted immediately when faced with obvious technological superiority. Those that resisted usually fell within days. "Prepare the standard ultimatum broadcast," Kethvar ordered. "All languages detected on the planet. We will give them the traditional 72 time units to consider surrender. As his communications team worked on the broadcast, Kethvar reviewed the fleet manifest. 50 dreadnoughts, each carrying enough firepower to devastate a continent. 200 support vessels with landing craft for the occupation forces. Nearly 1 million Imperial troops ready for deployment. It seemed like massive overkill for a primitive world. But the Empire had learned from past mistakes. Better to bring too much force than too little. Quick victories prevented lengthy resistance movements. "Sir," said Rexto, "I noticed something odd in the scout reports." "What?" "The humans have weapons pointed at each other constantly, but they never seem to use them. Look at this data." The tactical officer brought up a map showing the locations of human military assets. Thousands of missile silos dotted the northern continents. Naval fleets patrolled the oceans. Aircraft filled the skies, yet there were no signs of major active warfare. "Perhaps they are more peaceful than they appear," suggested Velsha. Kethvar disagreed. "More likely they are too afraid of their own weapons to use them. Primitive species often develop destructive capabilities they lack the wisdom to control." The Admiral had seen it before. Young civilizations would create powerful weapons, then become paralyzed by fear of using them. They would build elaborate defense systems that sat unused while they engaged in minor conflicts with conventional arms. The humans have probably created some crude nuclear weapons, he decided. Now they are too terrified to employ them against each other. This makes them even less likely to resist our occupation. The bridge crew nodded in agreement. It made perfect sense. A species that feared its own weapons would never dare use them against the technologically superior Zephyrian Empire. "Fleet positioning report," called out Navigator Kelrin. "All vessels are in formation and ready to jump to the target system." Kethvar took one last look at the peaceful blue world on his display. In a few time units, this planet would become the Empire's newest acquisition. Its 8 billion inhabitants would become productive members of Imperial society. Their primitive weapons would be melted down for useful materials. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "Prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Sol System, 3rd planet. Operation Harvest Moon is now active." The massive ships of the Zephyrian fleet powered up their hyperspace drives. Energy readings spiked across the formation as reality began to bend around each vessel. In moments they would cross the vast distance between stars and appear in Earth's solar system. Admiral Kethvar felt the familiar sensation of hyperspace transition. The viewing screen shifted from stars to the swirling colors of folded spacetime. His fleet was committed now. In less than a standard day, they would be in orbit around the primitive world called Earth. He thought about the victory celebration they would hold after the humans surrendered. Perhaps they would even invite some of the human leaders to attend as a gesture of imperial mercy. It would be good propaganda for the other species watching from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered its 847th star system through careful planning, overwhelming force, and precise intelligence gathering. Their scouts had been thorough. Their analysis had been complete. Their preparations had been perfect. Admiral Kethvar was absolutely confident that nothing could go wrong. The massive Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system with a thunderous ripple of displaced energy. 50 dreadnoughts materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like dark metal against the starfield. Each ship stretched over 2 kilometers in length, bristling with weapon ports and shield generators. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, watching as his fleet's sensors swept the Sol system. The 3rd planet hung before them like a blue jewel, unaware that its fate was about to be decided. "All vessels report successful transition," announced Navigator Kelrin. "Formation is tight. No damage reported." "Excellent." Kethvar activated his command interface. "Begin long-range scanning of the target world. I want to know if they detected our arrival." Within moments, the answer came. Lieutenant Zixtal looked up from her sensor station with surprise. "Sir, we are detecting massive increases in electromagnetic communications across the planet. Radio transmissions have increased by 300% in the last few time segments. They know we are here, observed Commander Rexto. Kethvar nodded. It was expected. Even primitive species usually had basic astronomical observation capabilities. The sudden appearance of 50 massive starships would be impossible to hide. Signal activity appears to be originating from multiple locations. Zixtal continued. I am detecting coordinated communications between what appear to be separate human governments. Show me. The main display shifted to show a map of Earth, with bright lines connecting various points across the continents. Communication signals flowed between locations that the scouts had identified as separate nations. Messages bounced between the northern and southern continents. Data streams connected island nations to mainland powers. Interesting, Kethvar mused. They are talking to each other. Perhaps they plan to coordinate their surrender. Communications. Officer Velsha activated her translation systems. The Empire had spent considerable effort learning human languages during the scouting phase. Most of the signals were encrypted, but some open channels were accessible. I am detecting words like emergency, threat, and defense, she reported. Also frequent references to something called DEFCON and nuclear. They are discussing their primitive atomic weapons, Rexto concluded, probably debating whether to use them against us. Kethvar was not concerned. The Empire's shields could absorb nuclear explosions easily. Even if the humans managed to detonate their crude weapons, they would only damage their own planet. It would be a foolish gesture of defiance. Prepare the ultimatum broadcast, he ordered. Standard Imperial format. All human languages. Velsha worked quickly at her station. The message would be transmitted on every frequency the humans used for communication. Radio, television, internet, satellite networks. Every human on the planet would hear the Empire's demands simultaneously. Broadcasting now, sir. Kethvar's image appeared on screens across Earth. His reptilian features and 4 eyes made it clear he was not human. When he spoke, translation, systems converted his words into hundreds of human languages. Inhabitants of the third planet of this system. His voice echoed across Earth's communication networks. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world is now claimed for the Empire. You will submit to Imperial authority immediately. He paused, letting the translation systems catch up. Across Earth, billions of humans were hearing these words for the first time. You have 72 standard time units to comply with the following demands. First, all governments will surrender authority to Imperial representatives. Second, all military forces will stand down and report to Imperial processing centers. Third, all weapons of mass destruction will be secured by Imperial forces. The Admiral continued reading from the Standard Conquest Protocol. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Compliance will be rewarded with integration into Imperial society. You have proven yourselves to be an intelligent species. Do not waste that intelligence through futile defiance. The transmission ended. Now came the waiting period. In Kethvar's experience, most primitive species needed time to accept their new reality. Some panicked. Some tried to negotiate. Most eventually surrendered when they understood the hopelessness of resistance. Monitor their communications, he ordered. I want to know how their leaders respond. What happened next confused everyone on the Imperial Bridge. Instead of panic or immediate surrender attempts, Earth's communications suddenly decreased. The flood of messages between human governments slowed to a trickle. Radio chatter from military installations went quiet. Even civilian broadcasts seemed to reduce in volume. Sir, Zixtal reported with uncertainty, the humans appear to have stopped talking. Stopped talking? Communication levels have dropped to less than 10% of normal. Most encrypted channels have gone silent. Even their public broadcasting systems are transmitting minimal content. Commander Rexto studied his tactical displays. Perhaps they are too frightened to respond. Some species become paralyzed when faced with superior force. Kethvar was not convinced. In his experience, truly terrified species became more talkative, not less. They sent desperate messages to each other, tried to coordinate desperate defenses or broadcast surrender offers. Continue monitoring, he ordered. If they do not respond within 24 time units, we will move the fleet closer to their planet. Hours passed. Earth remained eerily quiet. The planet's normal communication patterns had been replaced by an almost mechanical minimum of necessary signals. Weather reports, navigation data, basic civilian services continued. But the constant chatter between governments had virtually disappeared. It is as if they have imposed communication discipline, observed Velshaw. Military forces often limit radio traffic when preparing for combat. Combat? Rexto laughed. Against our fleet, they might as well throw rocks at our shields. Still, something about the human response bothered Admiral Kethavar. He had conquered dozens of species. He knew the patterns of surrender, resistance, and panic. This silence was something different. Sir, announced Zixtal, we are detecting some unusual activity on the planet's surface. Define unusual. Movement of military assets. Ground-based vehicles are repositioning. Aircraft are changing flight patterns. Naval vessels are altering courses. The main display showed Earth with small markers indicating military movements. Army units were moving to new positions. Fleets were dispersing from their normal bases. Air forces were redistributing across different airfields. They are preparing defenses, Rexto observed. Pathetic, but predictable. Kethvar was less certain. The human movements did not look like typical defensive preparations. Armies were not massing at likely invasion points. Fleets were not concentrating for major battles. Instead, everything seemed to be spreading out, dispersing, hiding. Analysis suggests they are attempting to make their forces harder to target, Zixtal reported. Classic doctrine for facing a technologically superior enemy. Then they plan to resist, the Admiral concluded. Very well, we will show them the futility of defying the Empire. He activated the Fleet Command channel. All vessels assume standard orbital positions, prepare to demonstrate Imperial power. Target selection, major population center, minimal strategic value. We will show them what defiance costs. The Zephyrian fleet moved toward Earth, their massive ships casting shadows across the moon. As they approached, more details of the planet became visible. Cities sprawled across the continents. Industrial centers pumped smoke into the atmosphere. Transportation networks carried millions of vehicles along roads and railways. It will be a shame to damage such infrastructure, Rexto commented, but they need to understand their situation. Admiral Kethvar selected his target carefully. A large city on the eastern continent, far from major military installations. The demonstration would be visible to billions of humans while minimizing damage to useful infrastructure. Charge main weapons, he ordered. Prepare to fire on my command. The Dominion's Edge powered up its primary disintegration cannon. Energy readings spiked across the ship's systems as the weapon drew power from the main reactors. Similar preparations began across the fleet. Sir, Velsha called out urgently, I am detecting new activity from the planet. What kind of activity? Multiple launch signatures, hundreds of them, coming from locations across the planet. Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical display. Red markers were appearing all over Earth as his sensors detected missiles rising from the planet's surface. The launches were coming from oceans, continents, even remote islands. Primitive missiles, he said dismissively. Probably they're nuclear weapons. Our shields will absorb them easily. But something was wrong with the sensor readings. The missiles were accelerating far faster than chemical rockets should be capable of. Their trajectories were too precise. Their numbers were increasing rapidly. Sir, Zixtal said with growing concern, these missiles are not following normal ballistic paths, and they are accelerating beyond theoretical limits for primitive propulsion. Admiral Kethvar stared at the display as hundreds, then thousands, of red markers streamed up from Earth. The human response was not what he had expected. This was not panic. This was not futile defiance. This was preparation. Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing confusion as thousands of red markers rose from Earth's surface. The missiles were moving wrong. Their acceleration curves defied everything the Empire's scientists knew about primitive propulsion technology. Time to first impact, he demanded. 47 seconds, sir, Lieutenant Zixtal replied, her voice tight with concern. But sir, these projectiles are not following standard ballistic trajectories. They are adjusting course mid-flight. Commander Rexdo leaned over his weapons console. Guided missiles, primitive but effective against unshielded targets. Fortunately, our deflector shields will stop anything these humans can launch. Cathvar nodded, but something nagged at him. The sheer number of launches was overwhelming. His sensors showed missile signatures from every continent, every ocean, even from locations that showed no previous military activity. "Sir," called Communications Officer Velsha, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet. Single source broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through." A human face appeared on the main screen. The creature had pale skin, short dark hair, and the typical two eyes of its species. She wore what appeared to be a military uniform with insignia that the Imperial computers identified as Admiral rank. "Zephyrian vessels," the human said calmly. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Command. You have 30 seconds to cease hostile actions and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." Commander Rexdo laughed. "United Earth Defense Command? The scouts reported no unified human government. They are bluffing." But Admiral Cathvar noticed something troubling. The human showed no fear. Her voice was steady, professional. She spoke like someone who held superior position, not someone facing impossible odds. 20 seconds to impact," Zixtal announced. "All shields at maximum power." The first missiles reached the outer edge of the Zephyrian formation. Admiral Cathvar expected to see them splash harmlessly against his ship's energy shields. Instead, something impossible happened. The leading projectile struck the dreadnought Conquest's Pride and went straight through its shields as if they did not exist. The ship's armored hull crumpled like paper. The massive vessel broke apart in a silent explosion of atmosphere and debris. "What just happened?" Cathvar shouted. "Direct hit on Conquest's Pride," Zixtal reported, her voice shaking. "The projectile penetrated shields and armor. The ship is gone, sir." More impacts followed in rapid succession. Each missile that struck a Zephyrian ship passed through its shields and tore through its hull like tissue paper. The Imperial fleet's energy deflectors, designed to stop plasma bolts and particle beams, provided no protection whatsoever against solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds. "Shields are useless," Rexdo called out. "These are kinetic weapons, not energy weapons, but how are they moving so fast?" Admiral Cathvar watched in horror as his magnificent fleet was torn apart in seconds. Ship after ship exploded as the strange human missiles found their marks. Each projectile moved faster than anything in the Imperial database suggested was possible for primitive technology. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "All ships scatter." But it was too late. The human missiles adjusted their trajectories to follow the fleeing Imperial vessels. Whatever propulsion system they used allowed for course corrections that defied physics. "Sir," Zixtal's voice was near panic. "I am detecting secondary launch signatures, energy weapons firing from the planet's surface." New red markers appeared on the display. These were not missiles, but directed energy beams. Streams of coherent particles lanced up from Earth's surface with surgical precision. The beams struck Imperial ships that had survived the initial missile barrage. "Those are not possible," Rexdo protested. "Particle beams cannot maintain coherence over such distances through an atmosphere." Yet the evidence was undeniable. The human energy weapons cut through Imperial armor like it was made of soft metal. Ships that had withstood the bombardment of entire planetary defense systems were being sliced apart by beams fired from Earth's surface. "Where are these weapons coming from?" Cathvar demanded. Zixtal worked frantically at her sensor station. "I am detecting launch sites across the planet, sir, but these locations show no previous military signatures. According to our scout reports, many of these sites were classified as civilian infrastructure." The Admiral stared at the tactical display as more of his ships disappeared. What his scouts had identified as communication satellites were revealing themselves as weapons platforms. What appeared to be civilian radio towers were actually targeting arrays. What looked like innocent research facilities were firing weapons that could crack planets. "Sir," Velsha called out, "we are receiving another transmission from the human Admiral." The same calm human face appeared on the screen. Admiral Chen looked exactly as composed as before, despite the devastating battle. raging around Earth. "Zephyrian Commander," she said, "you now have 17 seconds to order your remaining ships to stand down. We have eliminated 33 of your vessels. We can destroy the rest just as easily." "Impossible," Kethvar snarled. "Your species is primitive. Our scouts confirmed it. You have no unified government, no advanced weapons, no space-based defenses." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Your scouts observed us during peacetime. They saw what we wanted them to see. You made the mistake of assuming that our diversity meant weakness, that our apparent primitiveness meant helplessness." Another wave of missiles rose from Earth. These moved even faster than the first batch, their acceleration curves defying everything the Empire understood about physics. "How?" Kethvar whispered. "You developed energy weapons, so you built energy shields," Chen explained as if lecturing a student. "We focused on kinetic weapons, so we learned to make things move very, very fast. You built plasma cannons. We built rail guns that can accelerate projectiles to 12% of light speed." The Admiral felt his world crashing around him. "But your technology appears so primitive." "Different does not mean primitive," Chen replied. "We took a different path than you did. While you were perfecting energy manipulation, we were perfecting the art of making solid objects hit other solid objects very hard. More Imperial ships died as the second wave of missiles found their targets. The projectiles were moving so fast that they appeared as brief flashes of light before impact. No amount of armor could withstand the kinetic energy they delivered." "You cannot have unified so quickly," Kethvar protested. "Our scouts reported constant warfare between your nations. We compete with each other, yes," Chen agreed. "But we are one species. When an outside threat appears, our disputes become irrelevant. Every nation on Earth is now part of the United Earth Defense Command. Every weapon system is under unified control." The display showed only 12 Imperial ships still intact. Everything else was debris scattered across Earth's orbital space. "But how did you build such weapons without our scouts detecting them?" Admiral Chen smiled for the first time. It was not a friendly expression. "Who do you think we built them to fight?" "Each other. Every weapon you have seen today was designed to destroy other human militaries. We have been in an arms race with ourselves for centuries." The final human missiles reached the remaining Imperial ships. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display go dark as the last of his escorts was destroyed. Only his flagship remained, somehow having avoided the targeting systems through random evasive maneuvers. 47 seconds, Chen announced. "From the moment you fired your first weapon until the destruction of your last escort. 47 seconds. Kethvar looked around his bridge. His crew stared at their instruments in shock. An entire Imperial fleet had been eliminated in less than a standard minute by a species they had classified as primitive. "This is not over," he managed to say. "The Empire has thousands of ships. When they learn what happened here, they will learn that humanity is not as defenseless as they assumed," Chen interrupted. "They will also learn that we now have examples of Imperial technology to study. Your ships, your weapons, your shields. We are very good at reverse engineering things." The Admiral felt a chill run through his scaled body. "If humans could adapt Imperial technology to their own purposes." "We offer you a choice," Chen continued. "Surrender now and accept transport back to Imperial space with a message for your leaders, or be destroyed with your ship." Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical display one last time. The space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of his fleet. 49 of the Empire's most powerful warships had been reduced to scrap metal in less than a minute. He thought about the million Imperial troops waiting in the support ships that had remained at the edge of the system. He thought about the Empire's reaction when they learned what had happened here. He thought about the terrible mistake they had all made. "I surrender," he whispered. Admiral Kethvar sat in the medical bay of the human vessel USS Nimitz, his forearms secured but not uncomfortably restrained. The human medical staff had treated his injuries with surprising care. He had expected torture or execution after his fleet's complete destruction. Instead, he found himself receiving better medical attention than most Imperial prisoners could hope for. The human ship itself amazed him. What his scouts had identified as a primitive ocean vessel was actually a technological marvel. The Nimitz was larger than many Imperial cruisers and packed with weapon systems that made his own armament seem crude by comparison. "How are you feeling, Admiral?" Kethvar looked up to see Admiral Sarah Chen entering the medical bay. She moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. Her uniform was crisp and professional, showing no signs of the battle that had just destroyed an entire Imperial fleet. "Why am I alive?" he asked directly. Chen pulled up a chair beside his medical bed. "Because you chose to surrender rather than die pointlessly. Because you are worth more to us alive than dead. And because we are not monsters. You destroyed my entire fleet in less than one of your minutes." "Yes, we did." Chen's voice carried no regret or apology. "You came to conquer our world and enslave our people. What did you expect?" Kethvar studied her face, searching for signs of deception or cruelty. He found none. This human seemed genuinely puzzled by his question, as if the answer should be obvious. "I expected resistance," he admitted. "I did not expect annihilation." "Then you underestimated us badly." Chen activated a portable display unit. "I want to show you something. Maybe it will help you understand what happened today." The display showed various human weapons systems. Kethvar recognized some of them from the battle footage. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds. Particle beam arrays that could maintain coherence across impossible distances. Missile systems that defied conventional physics. "These are your secret weapons?" he asked. "Secret?" Chen laughed. "Admiral, every major human military has weapons like these. We have been building them for decades. The only secret was that we kept them hidden from your scouts." She changed the display to show historical footage of human warfare. Battles between human armies using increasingly sophisticated weapons. Cities destroyed by nuclear fire. Tests of experimental weapons that could crack continents. For the past century, the major powers on Earth have been in what we call a Cold War, Chen explained. We built enough weapons to destroy our own planet several times over. We developed delivery systems that could strike any target on Earth within minutes. We created defenses against weapons that could end civilization. Kethvar watched the footage with growing horror. These humans had been preparing to fight wars that would make Imperial campaigns look like minor skirmishes. "You built these weapons to fight each other?" "Competition drives innovation," Chen replied. "Every human nation wanted to ensure that no other human nation could defeat them. So we all built bigger and better weapons. We tested them constantly. We refined them endlessly." The display showed more recent footage, weapons tests in remote locations, missiles rising from hidden silos, experimental aircraft moving at impossible speeds, energy weapons carving through mountains. "When your scouts observed us, they saw nations pointing weapons at each other," Chen continued. "What they did not understand is that we were pointing the same weapons in all directions. Any threat to Earth would face the combined firepower of every human military." "But your governments were separate," Kethvar protested. "Our intelligence confirmed it. Our governments compete during peacetime," Chen agreed. "But we have protocols for external threats. The moment your fleet appeared, every major power on Earth activated the Unity protocols. All human military assets came under unified command within 6 hours." She showed him communication logs from the day of the invasion. Messages flashing between world leaders. Military commanders coordinating responses across continental boundaries. Nuclear powers sharing targeting data with former enemies. "In 6 hours, you united your entire species?" "Admiral, we have been planning for this scenario since we first looked at the stars and wondered what else might be out there. Every human government has contingency plans for alien invasion. We just never expected the aliens to be so obvious about their intentions." Chen changed the display to show technical specifications of human weapons. The numbers made Kethvar's head spin. Railguns with muzzle velocities approaching light speed, fusion warheads with yields measured in megatons, particle beams powered by antimatter reactors. "Your empire made a critical error in intelligence gathering," she continued. "You assumed that because our weapons looked primitive, they were primitive. You never tested them against your own defenses. How could we? You showed no hostility during the observation period." "Exactly. You saw us at peace and assumed we were peaceful. You saw our diversity and assumed we were weak. You never considered that a species capable of global warfare might also be capable of interstellar defense. The medical bay door opened and another human entered. This one wore different insignia and carried himself with scientific authority rather than military bearing. Admiral Kethvar, this is Dr. James Harrison, our chief weapons researcher, Chen said. He has some questions for you. Dr. Harrison activated his own display device. Admiral, we are curious about your shield technology. Our sensors detected energy deflection systems on your ships, but they proved useless against kinetic weapons. Your projectiles move too fast, Kethvar replied reluctantly. Our shields are designed to deflect plasma bolts and particle beams. They cannot stop solid matter traveling at near light speed. Interesting. So your entire military doctrine is based on energy weapons? Energy weapons are the pinnacle of military technology, Kethvar said automatically, then stopped. That assumption had just cost him his entire fleet. For you, perhaps, Dr. Harrison continued. We took a different approach. When we discovered that energy weapons required massive power sources and complex targeting systems, we decided to perfect simpler solutions. He showed technical diagrams of human weapon systems. A solid projectile requires no exotic matter, no complex field generators, no massive power core. You simply need to make it move very fast in the right direction. But the speeds your weapons achieved are impossible with primitive technology. Again with the word primitive, Chen interjected. Doctor, show him the railgun specifications. Harrison brought up detailed schematics. Electromagnetic acceleration using superconducting, coils and fusion power sources. We can accelerate a tungsten carbide projectile to 12% of light speed. At that velocity, a small rod can deliver more kinetic energy than your largest plasma cannon. Kethvar studied the designs with growing amazement. The human weapons were not primitive at all. They were elegantly simple, devastatingly effective, and completely immune to Imperial defensive systems. Your ships could not detect our launch signatures until it was too late because we do not use exotic propulsion, Harrison continued. Chemical rockets and electromagnetic acceleration produce minimal energy signatures compared to your plasma systems. And our targeting systems could not track your projectiles because they move in straight lines at constant velocity, Chen added. No complex maneuvering, no energy emissions to track. Just physics. The full scope of the disaster began to sink in. The Empire had encountered a species that had developed along completely different technological lines. Human weapons were specifically designed to counter the exact defensive systems that made Imperial fleets invincible. There is something else you should know, Chen said quietly. The weapons that destroyed your fleet represent less than 5% of Earth's total military capability. Kethvar felt his blood chill. 5%? We used only conventional kinetic weapons and basic particle beams. We did not employ nuclear weapons, antimatter warheads, gravitational manipulators, or our experimental quantum disruptors. We wanted to see how effective our standard armaments would be against Imperial technology. Dr. Harrison nodded. Consider this a field test of our defensive capabilities. The results exceeded our expectations. What do you want from me? Kethvar asked. Admiral Chen stood up. We want you to carry a message back to your empire. Tell them that Earth is under the protection of the United Earth Defense Command. Tell them that any attempt to conquer or harm humanity will result in retaliation. And if the Empire chooses to send a larger fleet? Chen and Harrison exchanged glances. Then they will discover what our advanced weapons can do, Chen replied. Admiral, your empire conquered 800 worlds using energy weapons and superior technology. But you never faced an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting the art of making things go boom. She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Admiral? Thank your empire for providing us with examples of their technology. Our engineers are very excited to study your shield generators, faster-than-light drives, and weapon systems. We are quite good at reverse engineering things. As the humans left him alone in the medical bay, Admiral Kethvar realized the true scope of the catastrophe. The Empire had not just lost a fleet. They had revealed their capabilities to a species specifically adapted to. 6 months after the 47-second war, former Admiral Kethvar stood in the observation deck of the human vessel Endeavour, watching as another former Imperial world celebrated its liberation. The planet below, once called Zerion 7 by its Zephyrian conquerors, had returned to its original name of Thalar. Its blue-green surface sparkled with the lights of cities that had been dark under Imperial rule. Kethvar now served as cultural liaison between humanity and the growing coalition of liberated worlds. It was a position he had never imagined holding. 6 months ago, he had been a proud Imperial admiral commanding 50 dreadnoughts. Now he was helping coordinate humanitarian aid for species the Empire had enslaved. "How many worlds is that now?" asked Captain Lisa Rodriguez, the Endeavor's commanding officer. 47, Kethvar replied. "The same number of seconds it took you to destroy my fleet." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "The Admiral thinks that's funny. She says humans appreciate that kind of symmetry." The irony was not lost on Kethvar. In 6 months, humanity had liberated more worlds than some Imperial fleets conquered in decades, and they were doing it without enslaving the inhabitants or strip mining the resources. "Status report from the Thalar government," announced Communications Officer Park. "They have officially voted to join the Terran Commonwealth. They are requesting defense agreements and technology sharing protocols." Kethvar watched as celebration fireworks lit up Thalar's night side, another world choosing to align with humanity rather than face the chaos left by the Empire's collapse. The pattern had repeated across 46 other systems. "Captain," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something. Why do you not conquer these worlds? Your military could overwhelm any of them easily." Rodriguez looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Why would we want to conquer them? They are not threatening us." "But they have resources, territory, strategic value. So, we have plenty of resources in our own system. We do not need to take from others." It was an answer that still confused the former Imperial officer. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered because conquest was what empires did. They took resources because taking was easier than trading. They enslaved populations because slaves required no wages. "Besides," Rodriguez continued, "these worlds are more valuable as allies than as conquered territories. Free peoples work harder than slaves. Trading partners provide more resources than mining colonies." A new signal appeared on the communications board. "Message from Earth Command," Officer Park reported. "Admiral Chen wants to speak with you, Kethvar." The main display activated to show Admiral Chen aboard her flagship. She looked exactly as composed as she had during their first meeting, though she now wore the insignia of Supreme Commander of the Terran Commonwealth Defense Force. "Kethvar," she said warmly, "I have news from the Outer Rim. The hegemony of Kree has requested our assistance in dealing with Imperial remnant fleets in their territory." The former admiral felt a familiar chill. The Kree hegemony controlled over 300 star systems and commanded one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. If they were requesting human assistance, the situation was serious. "How many Imperial ships are we talking about?" Rodriguez asked. "Approximately 200 vessels under Admiral Mortek," Chen replied. "They have been raiding Kree colonies and enslaving survivors. The Kree military cannot engage them effectively because the Imperial forces keep retreating to hyperspace before decisive battles can be fought." Kethvar nodded grimly. "Mortek was always a coward. He prefers to strike weak targets and flee from strong opposition. The Kree have offered us access to their star charts and military bases if we can eliminate this threat," Chen continued. "They are also willing to share their gravitational manipulation technology." "That is a significant offer," Rodriguez observed. "The Kree guard their technology jealously." "Indeed. Which suggests they are truly desperate." Chen's expression became more serious. "Kethvar, I want you to accompany the strike force. Your knowledge of Imperial tactics could be valuable." The former admiral considered the request. 6 months ago, he would have been leading those Imperial ships. Now he was being asked to help destroy them. The transformation felt surreal. I will assist in any way I can, he agreed. Excellent. Captain Rodriguez, the Endeavor is assigned to Task Force Liberator. You will rendezvous with the main fleet at the Kree border in 72 hours. After the communication ended, Kethvar found himself alone with his thoughts. Through the observation windows, he could see other human ships moving through space with deadly grace. The Endeavor was part of a flotilla of 20 vessels, each one more heavily armed than the Imperial dreadnoughts that had once seemed invincible. But it was not just the weapons that made human ships dangerous. It was the crews. These humans fought with a professionalism and coordination that the Empire had never achieved. They showed mercy to defeated enemies while being ruthless against those who threatened the innocent. Kethvar. Captain Rodriguez had returned to the observation deck. Are you all right? I'm thinking about Admiral Mortek, he replied. He is a capable commander, but he will not understand what he faces. He still believes in Imperial superiority. And you no longer do? Kethvar gestured toward the liberated world below. Look at Thalar. Under Imperial rule, it was a mining colony. The population was enslaved. The cities were work camps. The forests were clear-cut for resources. Now look at it. The planet sparkled with renewed life. Cities were expanding. Agricultural areas were being restored. Orbital stations were being built for trade rather than resource extraction. 6 months under human protection, and Thalar is more prosperous than it was under 2 decades of Imperial rule. Kethvar continued. The same pattern has repeated on every world you have liberated. We prefer cooperation to domination, Rodriguez said simply. It works better for everyone. A new alarm sounded from the bridge. Captain to the bridge, announced the ship's computer. Priority message from Task Force Liberator. They hurried to the bridge where the main display showed Admiral Chen again. Her expression was grim. All ships, new intelligence from Kree scouts. Admiral Mortek's forces are not just raiding colonies. They are gathering reinforcements from other Imperial remnant fleets. Current estimates suggest over 400 vessels converging on the Kree border. Captain Rodriguez frowned. 400 ships? That is twice our initial estimates. It gets worse, Chen continued. Intelligence suggests Mortek is planning something called Operation Restoration. He intends to use the combined fleet to retake Earth and restore Imperial authority. Kethvar felt his blood freeze. Mortek cannot be that foolish. Apparently he can, Chen replied. According to intercepted communications, he believes your fleet was destroyed through trickery and surprise. He thinks a direct assault with overwhelming numbers will succeed where you failed. Admiral, Rodriguez said, 400 Imperial ships represents a significant threat even for our forces. Chen's expression shifted to something that made Kethvar remember why humans were so dangerous. Captain, we have been planning for this scenario since the day we destroyed Admiral Kethvar's fleet. We knew the Empire would eventually respond with greater force. What are your orders? The Terran Commonwealth Defense Force is mobilizing in full. Every ship, every weapon, every ally. If Admiral Mortek wants to test our defenses again, we will give him a demonstration he will never forget. The display changed to show star charts with fleet positions marked across multiple systems. Hundreds of human ships were converging on predetermined coordinates. Allied forces from liberated worlds were moving to support positions. Defense stations were powering up weapons that made the guns that destroyed Kethvar's fleet look like toys. This is no longer about defending Earth, Chen announced. This is about ending the Imperial threat permanently. Any species that thinks it can enslave others will learn what happens when they threaten the Commonwealth. As the display showed, the massive mobilization taking place across human space, Kethvar realized that Admiral Mortek was about to make the same mistake he had made 6 months earlier. The Empire was about to underestimate humanity one final time. But this time, the humans were not going to settle for a 47-second victory. This time, they were going to make sure the lesson was permanent. Looking at the determination on every human face around him, Kethvar felt sorry for his former colleague. Mortek had no idea what kind of force he was about to face. The galaxy was about to witness the full power of humanity unleashed. And after that demonstration, Kethavar suspected, no species would ever again make the mistake of thinking Earth was defenseless. The age of the Zephyrian Empire was ending. The age of the Terran Commonwealth was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same.